No, not that I know of.
Yeah. So I was trying to get one piece that was compacted to calcium. Open that little end.
I went to bed early, got up early, and was still late. So my New Year's not off to a good start. Speaking of the New Year, how many people made resolutions this year? Did anybody make any resolutions this year? New Year resolutions for the new year? That's kind of how I feel. Usually, in the past, when I've made resolutions, it lasts about a week or two, and then it drops off pretty bad. I don't think I'm that unusual. I think I'm pretty normal. In my own mind, I think I am. But we finished up last week's lesson talking about words that God uses to describe His children. I kind of rushed through the last two or three of them. I want to go back over those real quick and just kind of think about those for a few minutes. Before we get started with the next lesson, we've got page 14 in the great books I'm looking at, page 14. And I woke up early this morning and couldn't get back to sleep and started thinking about the things we say, words we use, and against us. From maybe starting off this lesson, thinking about the thing that God thinks about His children, the things that God thinks about the righteous, things God would think about Christians. And there's a big separation between what the world thinks and what the Bible teaches. If we look at number one, think about these words. The elect. Elect. The called out. The beloved. The holy. Again, the election of beloved. Number two, faithful, dear children. Faithful. So it's got a qualifying statement on it. It's not just dear children, it's faithful, dear children. Blessed. I think that was from Beatitudes in Matthew 5:25. Blessed was used 10 or 11 times about blessed are God's children, for they shall do different things and indeed people to the world. Be followers of Christ. Number 6, we talk about redeemed. We can spend several minutes on the word redeemed. What does it mean to be redeemed? Sought out. Not forsaken. Number 7, blameless. Think about that for a second. Doesn't mean sinless, but blameless. Means we've done what we could to get forgiven. That's another key word. Born again, number 8. Born again, an incorruptible body. One that will live forever. And then number 9, godly and just. If you will, just flip over one page. There's a spot on the bottom of page 15. And if you got a pen, take it. And I want to think about things that we call God. What do we call God? When we think about God's power, God's grace, when we think about prayer, when we address God in prayer, a lot of times we talk about when Christ led His apostles in prayer, holy and reverend is thy name, as He called His apostles to pray. So holy and reverend, that'd be two of the words we could use to describe God. What are some of the words you think of when you think of God? One that comes to mind, of course, I've kind of got an advantage since I was thinking about this earlier. Awesome. Our God is an awesome God. Another one was worthy. Worthy of our praise. When we talk about I'm going to get these from some of our songs that we sing in our song service. Worthy of praise, worthy of our worship, worthy of our service. What are some of the words you think of?
Love.
Love. The ultimate example of love. That's a good one. God so loved the world, He gave the only begotten Son. Several keys there for us to think about. Next word. Arnold? Don't send her out. She's struggling. Forgiving. Our God is a forgiving God. He sees us. He sees us struggle. I saw a video yesterday from somebody posted on Facebook from a year or two ago. And I guess I hadn't seen it before, but it's been around for a while. And it basically is talking about that. What is forgiveness? God is able to forgive us of our sins if we do these things, if we follow these conditions. And He is willing and more than able to forgive us of our sins. That kind of goes along with the new year and a fresh start. Putting those things which are behind us and pressing forward, as Paul wrote. Anybody else got any other words?
Also, maybe it's hard for us to grasp. When God forgives, He forgets.
Yeah, definitely. He literally washes the slate clean. I'm not going to pick on. In a typical marriage, I'll say that. A lot of times the wife, a year or two later down the road, will remember what the husband had done in the past. I said typical, I didn't say, or correct me, what the husband hasn't done. That might be more appropriate. But the husband and wife situation, we know each other very well. But God, when He forgives, He forgets. He doesn't bring it up. It never be brought up again unless we repeat that sin. And I think that's, like Arnold said, it's hard for us to grasp because we've got a memory of it. And God washes it away. Anything else? I would challenge us as a class, as individuals, when we pray this year, or this week, or today, or whatever, look for a different word. Try to, if you will, broaden our vocabulary a little bit when we pray. And this is aimed at me directly because I've caught myself several times being stuck almost in, not really vain repetitions, but it's the same prayer almost. It's our cookie cutter prayer. Bless me, bless this, thank you for this, thank you for this, amen. And that's not prayer. We need to think about it, put some thought behind it. And I think if we try to think of a different word to thank God with, or to praise God with, that might be a thing that would help us this year. Back to page 14, we'll finish up this lesson pretty quickly and move on. Talk about the things that God calls the children in the Bible. And then he also points out there in the middle of the page, this is talking about various sacrifices were offered in the Old Testament for different purposes. None of those sacrifices could permanently free man from his sins. And although Solomon made silver a common item in his day, none of his wealth could save his soul. Nor could any kind of earthly wealth save the sinner. Nevertheless, in the age in which we live, regardless of the age in which you live, you can't, even in our world, we can't give to the poor to the point that we save our soul. We can't give to the church enough. That will never save us if we give all of our wealth. But we don't obey, we'll still be lost. It took the blood of Christ, it says, to cleanse once and for all. In 1 Peter 1:18-19 it says, for as much as ye know that ye were blank redeemed with corruptible things. What were we not redeemed? We were not redeemed with corruptible things, but such as silver and gold, for your vain conversation received by tradition from your fathers, but with the precious blood of Christ, as the Lamb without blemish and without spot. In the Old Testament, if you brought a lamb to God in sacrifice that was sickly, was that acceptable? No. Give a couple of head shakes. Of course not. If you, in the Old Testament, many times there were swift examples from God to the children of Israel, to different, even to Moses, and to bringing them out in Exodus and going into the wilderness. There were several times when God put a stop to their direction that they were going in. In the next lesson, cheating a little bit, we talk about thousands of people that were killed in a day because of disobedience. These are God's people. When Moses and Aaron basically were pleading with God not to don't kill all, but 14,000 people plus died. We're going to read about there in Genesis where the ground, the earth opened up and swallowed 250 of the princes of Egypt, or excuse me, of the Israelites, which had escaped Egypt. So just being called a child of God or being an Israelite in that case didn't save them. But it took the precious blood. I think that's the key word, the precious blood. Not just the blood, but the precious blood. And without blemish and without spot. Christ endured his life perfectly. Think about that. All the ridicule that he took, especially in the last days of his life on earth. It's hard to think about how much power he had, yet he took no action. He talked about earlier that his time had not yet come when he passed through the midst of them. Whether he passed through them and they couldn't move and just walked through them and they couldn't touch him, or he just walked through them, we don't know. But the whole idea is he had the power to do that then. He could have walked out of the judgment seat. He could have walked off from the cross. He didn't. Lots to think about there. Having that much power, but yet still that much control and that much love for us. The bottom paragraph, Sandra, you will read that bottom paragraph for us.
Those offers which make the world, the shadows of things to come, for reading Hebrews 10:1, for the law having the shadow of good things to come, and not the very image of the things never of those sacrifices which they offer year by year, continually make atonement. Theirs is perfect, which is spring beforehand, but in those sacrifices there is a remembrance again made of sins every year. For it is not possible that the blood of bulls and of goats should take away sins. But what then are sinners cleansed? Verses 9 and 10 give the answer. Then said he, Lo, I come to do thy will, O God, and taketh away the first, that he may establish the second, out of which we are sanctified through the offerings of the body of Jesus Christ once for all.
Once and for all. That was, I guess, the key of that verse, that scripture there in Hebrews 10. Some key things that we brought out there. He took away the first, he established the second, the old law, the old pattern, the old sacrifices. And then by his sacrifice and death on the cross, he established his New Testament and his will when he goes back. And we know that. But the world, a lot of our friends that we work with, maybe many people will see even tomorrow, don't really have a clue about the separation of power. They may have worshipped. If they went to worship yesterday, obviously they don't understand New Testament worship. It might be a good opportunity for us to look and try to, maybe this year's making a goal for us to bring it up, maybe a week or two at a time, just say to people, let's, we've got some differences going on here. What are they? Let's talk about them. Why do we do what we do? Get people to read the Bible. I think that's the key. The more they read, the more it'll start to fit together. Christian and non-Christian. The more you read, the more it fits. I've always said that. And I think I'm not the first to come up with that. That's why we need to study. The last thing that the author has for us there on page 15 is these scriptures are often, and many others, show the worth of man inside the Creator God. As the familiar song says, he paid a debt he did did not owe. I owed a debt I could not pay. I needed someone to wash my sins away, and now I sing a brand new song. Amazing grace, Jesus Christ paid the debt I could never pay. He paid the ransom for us. If you think about it, we give everything we've got, every breath we've got, and it would never save our souls. That was at the blood of Christ. Any comments before we move on? I wanted to kind of back up the rest of those questions and talk about really the things that God thinks about us, the words that He used in the Bible, the things that we think about Him in our prayers. That was kind of what I wanted to do in this lesson. If not, on page 16, we're almost to the title. Lesson number 4 is the title that made me buy this book. And we're not going to be there this week. But will you also go away with the question asked here? Lesson 4 is, am I therefore become your enemy because I tell you the truth? People that know me and understand the why, that will be the question that I will go to. I'm not your enemy. I'm trying to be your friend. Here, this lesson here from John 6:67. Will you also go away? Who's speaking there? So I'll flip over there. John 6:67. I think we know pretty quickly who we're talking about here. Jesus Christ Himself. Who is He talking to? I started to guess, but let's just go there and look at it. John 6, 67 is the actual verse. We also go away. 66. Let's go ahead and back up to, I don't see a new paragraph beginning. You just kind of scan the verses. In 32, Jesus said to them, very well, I say unto you, Moses gave you not that bread from heaven, but my Father giveth it, the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is that which cometh down from heaven and gives life to the world. And then verse 35, Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. He that cometh to me shall never hunger, and he that believeth on me shall never thirst. Skipping down to 41. I am the bread which came down from heaven. And he said to them, verse 42, is it not Jesus, the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we know? How is it that he saith, I came down from heaven? Jesus therefore answered and said to them, murmur not among yourselves. No man can come to me except the Father who sent me draw him. And I will raise him up at the last day. Then jump down to 53. If you notice, I'm jumping to the red letters of Christ speaking. Verse 52, the Jews therefore strove among themselves, saying, how can this man give us this flesh to eat? And 53 says, verily, verily, I say unto you, except ye eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, ye have no life in you. Whosoever eateth my flesh and drinketh my blood hath eternal life, and I will raise him up in the last day. And in 59, talking these things said he in the synagogue as he taught, he converted him. Many therefore the disciples, verse 60, when they heard this, said, this is a hard saying, who can hear it? And Jesus knew it himself that his disciples murmured at it, and he said to them, doth this offend you? What and if ye shall see the Son of Man ascend up where he was before? It is the Spirit that quickeneth, and the flesh profiteth nothing. The words that I speak to you, they are spirit, and they are life. But there are some of you that believe not. For Jesus knew from the beginning who they were that believed not, and who should betray him. And he said, therefore said I unto you, that no man can come to me except it be given him of the Father. And from that time, verse 66, many of the disciples went back and walked no more with him. And Jesus unto the 12, will ye also go away? Preaching that's unpopular isn't always bad. Sometimes it's what we need. In this case, many of his disciples, many of his believers, think about that. These were people that saw Jesus. These are people that knew Jesus. These are people that saw his miracles. I think at this time, knew that he was, had seen the miracles that he was performing. He'd already called the 12 apostles, and the apostles had already healed, obviously, and done many miracles. But many of the disciples went back, verse 66. That's then it probably makes me ask that question. Will you also go away? The author uses that for the lesson that we're getting into.
Human nature doesn't change much.
No. That was one of the things.
Jesus, person, was in the church. Thought nothing about it. People leave the church, which is Jesus himself, today. Think nothing about it. Human nature stays about the same.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's what this whole lesson is about. Is that exact thing, that human nature that we're fighting against. The introduction to the lesson talks about preponderance evidence in the Bible history from Genesis through Revelation shows that God's people have a record of repeated departure from the precepts and principles given them. In consequences of their departure from His commandments, they have suffered many defeats, frequent bondage, and even death. A little reflection on some of the blunders and outright rebellion should be sufficient to verify this point as we consider the following examples. And then we go through Adam and Eve in the garden of his family, Noah, the Israelites in the wilderness that I made reference to earlier, also the period of the judges, the period of the kings, and as we work through the Bible, the going away problem will get through maybe a couple of weeks. But it's like you said, human nature. We're never satisfied. If we're not careful, we'll take that into the religious world also. But once we find the truth, that's when we need to draw the line. That's when we need to be satisfied and teach others what we should do to be saved.
In chapter 6 there, when they were talking about going away, you see what Jesus used as a reason for them not to go?
Unbelief.
Yeah, unbelief. And the Lord to whom shall we go with choice? Thou hast the words of eternal life. As long as you believe with the Church of Christ, there's the words of eternal life, or the words of Christ. If you've got any spiritual sense at all, you're not going to believe. People leave the church. I can't get over how it comes and goes. You look around and say, who's gone this week?
Yeah, it's sad how quickly we change.
But they did it when Jesus on this earth, and they still did it.
What about verse 70 down there? You got your Bible open there. What does verse 70 say?
Jesus answered, they have not chosen the 12.
How about Judas, obviously? And one of the 12, as we know, excuse me, as we know, betrayed. He knew it, and there had to be some awkward moments and looks, obviously, from that time on to his betrayal in the garden. Being that close to Jesus and yet knowing in your heart that you were the one, you were the man that was going to betray him. In the book, on the middle page 16, I don't think the book, let's go read Genesis 2, 15 and 7 through 17 for us. And then Bob, if you will get Genesis, or Lois, if you will get Genesis 3, 2 and 3. And Bob will let you finish up with Genesis 3:16. He talks, it says, every Sunday school child knows the sin of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. What does Genesis 2:15, 16, 17 say?
The Lord God took the man and put him into the garden of Eden to rest it and keep it. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it. For in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die.
And then the author finishes up the tie-in to that. It says, God then made Adam a companion also, who also knew the restrictions concerning fruit in the garden. For when Satan asked her about it, what was her reply in Genesis 3, 2 and 3?
The woman said to the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden, but the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, you shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it, lest you die.
But Satan deceived her. He finishes up and he says, when she saw that it was good for food, blessed the eyes, that she would make one wise, she took and gave some to Adam also, and he ate. And because of their sin, they were driven from the garden, was not allowed to return. What does Genesis 3:16 say about it?
Which is what we said, I will be multiplied by sorrow, and make deception, and sorrow without shall bring forth children, and that desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule.
So that's when the woman became subject, if you will, to the man, because she sinned first. If you look at verse 24 there in chapter 3, it says, so he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the garden of Eden cherubims, and a flaming sword which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. So he banned them, and then he put a guard at the door basically to keep them out. The history of mankind in basically three chapters in Genesis went from the creation, the perfect situation in the garden, talking with God, walking with God, and then just a few verses later being banned from the Garden of Eden. It's interesting when you think about that and look back at how soon basically that humankind was deceived by Satan. And like we talked about earlier, it had our nature hasn't changed much. We want to be wise. We want to be the exception. We want to be the best that we can be physically in the world. But sometimes we need to look at our spiritual life and back up, try to stay there. Adam and Eve and his family, also with the next page 17, talks about their being parents, having children. In their new world, they became parents first of Cain and then of Abel. It says both brought offerings to the Lord. God was not pleased with Cain's offering, and through hatred of Abel, whose offering was acceptable, Cain slew Abel and received a just reward for his terrible deed. The punishment that he thought was greater than he could bear, namely, was that the ground would not yield forth its strength, and that he would be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. And in time, Adam and Eve had another son called Seth, who became the father of Enos, and it was after the birth of Enos that man began to call upon the name of the Lord. Genesis chapter 4. Not only did Adam and Eve know how to be pleasing to God, Cain and Abel knew how to be pleasing to God. God being a just God, the laws the things that he expected. That wasn't the first time that Cain and Abel would worship God. Obviously, we think that they knew how they should worship, but God accepted one and didn't accept the other. Of course, from the hatred he killed his own brother. A fugitive and a vagabond. Again, being driven from the perfect situation. Fugitive and vagabond upon the earth. The earth did not yield to the strength. He would be struggling his whole life. Good thing for us to think about as we present our worship. Is it acceptable to God? Is God happy, satisfied with what we do in our worship and also in our lives? Any comments about Adam and Eve and their children? The first family on earth. If you look down to the middle of page 17, Noah and the people of his time, Genesis 6, again, not very many chapters over. after Cain slayed Abel. We have the generations of Adam and 5. And then the wickedness of man, chapter 6 and verse. Roy, if you will, go to. Let's all go to Genesis 6.
Where are you, 18?
Genesis chapter 6. We're going to read the Bible. We're going to read. Here's the first 8 verses.
Genesis chapter 6, verse 8 verses.
Yes.
It came to pass that the men were in a multiplying the face thereof, the daughters of foreigners, the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair. And they took the wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in those days. And also after that, when the sons of men came in, and the daughters of men, they bare children to them. The same became mighty men, which were of old, and were now. And God saw the wickedness of man in the earth, that was every imagination of his heart on evil continued. That's a bad situation. And he repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And the Lord wondered how he built that our generation. And the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air. For repented me that I have made it. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Is that it?
That's it. Thank you. Those first 8 verses, chapter 6. The author uses that for basically the summation of Noah and the people of his time. We know how that story ends. If you look at the beginning, when they took the wives, the women, and the sons of the giants, the offspring became mighty men of renown. They were looking at the physical side. If you think about the physical abilities, they wanted to be the most athletic, if you will, or the most physically challenged, or not challenged, able to accept challenges, the strongest of the strong. And that's what they were looking for. They weren't thinking about godly, they were thinking about physical might. And if you look down, number 5, verse 5 is the key. It grieves God.
Another time in the mind of God, like Genesis 6:13, whereas all that envy of it over.
I think it still goes
God
on.
said, the end of all flesh is come before me. For the earth is filled with violence through them. Behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Could it be that God's going to do that again?
On
Judgment Day. He's going to make amends then.
But they won't destroy it again with water.
Not with water, no.
With sign in the sky.
It'll be with fire next time.
Yep.
It'll be with fire. I don't think we think a whole lot about that, and we should. I think we should. References to snatching people out of we talks about in the New Testament about snatching people out of the fire, saving their souls. It's that crucial. It could happen in 5 seconds. Luckily, it didn't. We know people that are not saved. There are a lot of things to think on. That verse 5, there's a key word there at the end of that makes God grieve in his heart. And God saw that the wickedness of men was great upon the earth, that every imagination and thoughts of his heart were on evil continually. Never changing. Always on evil. Always against God, if you will. Noah, not perfect. We know he wasn't perfect. He wasn't the Son of God. But he found grace in God's eyes. So there was something there in Noah's heart that God saw. And Noah and his family, 8 people, were all that were saved. And we know that the preaching of Noah, he was preaching there's a flood coming. Nobody listened but his own family. He took the two, built the ark exactly the way God told him to. Quick question. If Noah had used oak instead of gopher wood, would the ark float?
You're just, yeah, I can't hear it. I hear it.
If Noah had used oak wood instead of gopher wood, would the ark have floated? I'm getting some strange looks. Why do you say no? Exactly. That's what I was heading for. That's what I was looking at. Something that minor is really that major. We think, well, any wood's as good as another. All through the Old Testament, the examples of the building of the tabernacle, the direction that they had, even the Ark of the Covenant that they built, the amount of gold, touching it, carrying it. I mean, there was so many different things that God was so exact on. I don't see how we can think that now we're just turning loose and do anything we want. And that's what the world today looks at. As long as you're not doing anything violently to somebody, you're okay. I think that's a sad situation we've gotten into. But you have to agree with God in his heart that he is the created man. He talks about the floodwaters down at the end of that chapter, that paragraph in the book. Talks about how long did the floodwaters prevail upon the earth. Genesis 7, verse 24. Sister Sue, if you will, go to Genesis 7 and start with 3:20 through 24 for us, if you will. The last verses of Genesis 7, starting with verse 20.
Was the veil, 15 cubits upwards from the mountain of cook, and all the flesh died, and that moved on the earth, birds and cattle, beasts, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, and every man. All whose nostrils was the breath of spirit of life. All that was on the dry land died, so he destroyed all living things which were on the face of the earth, both man and cattle, creeping things and birds of the air. They were destroyed from the earth. Only Noah and those who were in the ark remained alive. And the waters prevailed on the earth 150 days.
150 days, 5 months. The tallest mountain was covered, my Bible says, with over 20 feet of water. Hard for us to think about that and comprehend that, but that's what the Bible says. That's exactly what happened. Our friends that don't think there was a flood, we know that even from the museum up here in Kentucky, there's a lot of evidence in the ground that says it did happen. There's a lot of things that in the Bible that refer back to it that say it happened just as God had commanded it to. As horrible and terrible as that sounds, it's coming again. Not with water, but with fire, like we talked about. When Christ returns, there's an ark. We're in it, hopefully. Do the best we can to keep us and our family in it, and be ready when Christ returns. The next people or group we're going to get into, Lord willing, next time we get together, is the Israelites in the wilderness. Go ahead and look again at Genesis 12 for next week, and also down through Exodus, some of the verses there. Talk about the bondages that they were in, the spying of the land of Canaan, and then the wondering why it started, how it started, and realize that God, if you think about the verses that say, I am the Lord thy God, and I change not. If he was mad at the people at that time, and upset, angry at his own people, he can be upset and angry with us today. Obviously, that's kind of what I think the author's looking for there. Appreciate your attendance, your reading, and your comments today, and we'll pick up, like I said, the middle of page 17 next time. Thank you.
That was
I didn't hear him.
I said it's curse